Good afternoon and welcome to Writer Showcase number 159. We've really done 159 of these. That's crazy. But let's, with no further preamble, I believe that Balerion had one that he wanted to do that was kind of two short turns, if I remember correctly.
Well, actually, I have a couple of different things that I'm going to do short ones. I have a short epic poem. I was going to do that one first because I didn't finish it because I realized pretty early on that it wasn't. That I didn't think it was very good. So we'll see what you chaps think of this. Let's see. In fact, it's oh god, this isn't like this isn't a blue book, an examination book that my father had a bunch of those, and we took them. And let's see, it looks like my little sister's written her name all over it, and I've written on it. This is an imitative, decadent Sanduranian poem. Its subject matter is Gularian, but the style is copied from the Terranians. It stinks. And this is this is my opinion at the age of like 19 or 20. So it's called.
You've been writing since you were 19. Dang, that's some commitment right there.
Well, I mean, in a manner of speaking, yeah. So let's see. Looks like I called it the Karazos Biz, but then I changed it to just plain Karaz, spelled Q-U. I'm sorry. No A, no U. Qaraz. And that's the name of the hero. So, prologue. Bethink you of the days of yore, and what is said in books of lore, of Runja, who the sea god tamed, of Denair, he the dwarf most famed. I was reading a lot of Tolkien at this time, you may have guessed.
Kind of sounds more like Beowulf, personally.
Well, I read that too. Of Battala, the queen most feared, how many heroes have appeared, that to Gular, that's Ghular, did give such fame, that none but fools knew not their name. Question. Stanza 2. Gular hath but one so renowned, that everywhere his name is found, upon the lips of young and old, in every land his tale is told. Karaz is he, a man whose name shall be the source of Gular's fame. Now, Canto 1, Stanza 1. When Dan the summer god beheld the snow-white winter goddess Geld, the enchantment on him was so great, there now was love where once was hate. When of his love to her spake he, to him she answered, I love thee. If you haven't gotten the good part yet. To him she answered,
Please share with the class. This sounds amazing.
I love thee. Why is this? This gap doesn't exist. To them Karat the service read, by which he caused them to be wed. Shut up, not you, that guy. You can't hear my radio, can you?
No.
Good. Can't hear it.
Good. Stanza 2. In time a son to them was born, upon the New Year's blessed morn. His hair was black as midnight sky, as blue as summer was his eye. As soon as he was born, he spake, and said these words, I am awake. Then Dan said he is marked for fame. Said Geld, Karaz shall be his name. Stanza 3. Then 7 months did pass until the birth of Karaz's brother Zil. Karaz lived all these months in bliss, until one night he heard a hiss. Out of his slumbers he awoke, and saw a dragon breathing smoke. The drake had brought him to its lair, and its foul stench did fill the air. The lair had 10 caves full of gold, and 10 of silver, be it told. Each cavern had 1,000 gems, 100 crowns and diadems. Oh no, here comes the really good part. Karaz said, "Why didst thou take me? For food," the drake said, "I took thee." Karaz said, "Food I shall not be. Now let me loose ere death take thee." The, the dragon, the, dra- the dragon laughed. "Why should I fear thee that hast neither sword nor spear?" To this Karaz made no reply, but seized a sword that lay near by. Then quoth the dragon, "Cool am I, whom none hath ever dared defy." Long time they battled in the cave, until Karaz the last stab gave, that sent the monster to its grave. Karaz said to his trusty sword, "Cool's bane, I name thee Clurlord." Then he the dragon's treasure took, he crossed o'er a flowing brook. Then in the land of Bot was he, between the mountains and the sea. Then there's a note on top of this thing which says, Clurlord means killer of cool. And at the end, bottom of the page, it says Canto 2, and that's it. Oh, but here's my sister wrote some letters. And she also wrote, "The quick red fox jumps over the lazy brown dog." Oh, here we are. And on the back, she's written her name, and she's drawn some faces, and she's written Dwayne and Dwanda, and she's drawn looks like a bus or something. So that's that.
Your epic poem.
Well, it's only the beginning. I wrote an actual epic poem too, in a literature verse. Maybe I'll read that sometime. It's more consistent. It's a little bit less deep because it's alliterative. It's not. These are like rhyming. I think it's octosyllabic, so I think it's iambic tetrameter. Whom none hath ever dared defy.
Yeah, that's tetrameter. That's iambic tetrameter.
Battled in the cave. Yeah, iambic. Yeah. Long time they battled in the cave, so it's kind of like thing going on. So maybe that's anyway. I didn't do that one for very long, but hey.
I thought it was interesting. There were bits of weirdness here and there, but I think the what's most surprising was when you just started busting up laughing.
I don't know why I started laughing over "I love thee." I guess it's because it's so banal. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it made me laugh. It's so banal, but at least it's not. At least it's straightforward.
It's earnest.
It's very earnest, yeah, but unfortunately after a while I was like, I don't know. This is when I wanted to be Tolkien.
It kind of sounds a little bit like something you'd hear in Midsummer Night's Dream. From
it sounds like it's something the Mechanicals would have come up with. If the Mechanicals were doing Lord of the Rings, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not as funny, but yeah. Yeah, because I remember that. Yeah, we read that bit, and I think we read that bit in Latin class. You see, well shown, Moon.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about that bit when Titania first sees Bottom in his donkey face, and she just says, and I must confess to thee, I love thee.
Oh no.
That's what it made me think of, at least.
Yeah.
So that's like the anime trope of the rando getting the hot girlfriend who is completely out of his league for no reason other than that he is the main character. Except, in Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, except that Bottom isn't even the main character, I don't think.
No, he's more of a tertiary guy who just kind of gets caught up in the whole nonsense of the play.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and
Mainly
that's the only
because
bit I remember very well. Because I'm not even sure we read the entire thing. I think we might have just read that bit where they were, because we were reading Pyramus and Thisbe in Ovid in the Latin. So, by way of contrast, we went and saw what the mechanicals did of it in Midsummer's Night Dream, where we're mainly remembering is the chap who's the lion telling the ladies, "Don't worry, I'm not actually a lion. I don't want to actually please don't actually be frightened of me. I'm not really a lion."
yeah, and it's very much we don't want to scare them. We don't want to scare them. You would roar too terribly.
Yeah.
Terribly. And then I think that's one of my favorite running jokes in Midsummer Night's Dream whenever I've seen it, is the fact that when they sometimes will have the guy playing bottom roar ferociously from behind and a curtain, whereas the guy actually doing the line will say something along the lines of "Le roar,"
Yeah.
or "meow,"
or "grr."
Yeah, when we did a production of it at school, we had the guy who was doing the lion had him forget his line, and they just called us, "You roar, and then finally said, "Roar," and that was it.
That honestly is really funny.
Sounds reasonable.
Le roar. I think it was like a French guy. He said "le roar."
Yeah.
It was hilarious. It was so funny.
Yeah. So that's that for now. Maybe the funniest thing is how brutal I was towards it afterwards when I stopped and then I wrote all this mean stuff about it on the cover. But I already read out that part. Oh, and I've also got a note here saying might be a forgery, but then I crossed that out.
Perhaps. You never know. All right. Carl, you are up.
Okay. So, there we go. All right. So, if we recall from last time, Shenna and company just showed up at the opera house for a little night at the opera. And they just got in after a little incident with a racist doorman. But now they're inside and they're about to take in the opera. May God have mercy on them. So this is Night at the Opera Part 2. The interior of the Grand Opera House more than lived up to its name. The foyer was a vast space with an arched ceiling 4 stories high and glittering gold embossing on the walls. Towering columns stood in orderly lines with brilliant red draperies twisting about their immensity like vines wrapping around mighty trees in a forest of luxury. The floors were of polished marble with fine red carpets to indicate the way deeper into the opera house. and the air was lively with the hum of conversation from the crowd of richly dressed theater-goers milling about in the space. "This way, Shenna," Elira said. "I must introduce you to my companions." Shenna rejoined Elira and Kalish among the cluster of ladies, dressed in the exact same fashion as Terracine. Indeed, it took a moment to realize that Terracine was in fact already among their number. The ladies stood in a semicircle, each one delicately clutching a silk fan in her right hand, held up in what was probably an attempt to hide their bitter jealousy at the fantastical new jewelry on display. Shenna quickly took the hint and unfurled her own fan, a frantic last-minute purchase made several days earlier at Iseldra's suggestion, and held it up to her own face in imitation of the other ladies. Iseldra had told her that there was a subtle social language of gestures and positions where fans were concerned, but there hadn't been nearly enough time for her to impart them all. Shenna would have to settle for imitating Elira's posture for this evening. She made little effort to remember the names of the ladies as Elira introduced them. It was unlikely that she would meet any of them again in her daily affairs. And besides, judging by their reactions when Elira introduced Shenna and Kalish, the ladies would doubtless make every attempt to forget them as well. Once the introductions were completed, a tense silence settled over the gathering. "I must say," Elira said after a few empty moments, "I greatly admire your jewels, Charisse." "It's good of you to notice," said the woman who Shenna had already forgotten was called Charisse. She extended a languid arm to one side, like the tentacle of an inkfish, to let the jewels gilding and adorning her wrist catch the light, a meager reflection of the finery adorning Shenna and company. "I had them made in especial for the occasion," she said. "I spent 10 lath upon the collection, nearly as much as the rest of my gown." "They complement the ensemble quite nicely," Elira said. "Don't you agree, Shenna?" "Only 10 lath?" Shenna said. "Oh, why, you were robbed. I know a place where you could have gotten them done for 20. Nobody laughed at the joke. Instead, one of the other ladies stepped forward. Minessa, probably, or maybe it was Falaire? "Where?" she demanded, really. "I must know." "Why, from Kalish, of course," Shenna said, turning to face Kalish. "There's no finer jewelrite in all of Acre. I'm certain she can make something worthy for you as well. What do you think?" Kalish stepped forward, theatrically brushing her hair aside to reveal the glowing gems dangling from her earlobes. The other ladies took a timid step back, as if come face to face with a dangerous beast. Kalish made a show of scrutinizing the woman's appearance. "Perhaps," she said at length. "I am never before working with such exotic features as this one, but there may be some things that I can do." The lady stiffened and fluttered her fan to send a cooling breeze across her swiftly reddening face. "I shall send one of my girls to arrange a commission," she said to Elira instead of Kalish. Elsewhere in the ensemble, Shenna saw Terracine's face twist like a sponge soaked full of revulsion. "Well," Elira said, "it was a pleasure to see you all again. Enjoy the opera." And with that, Elira turned back into the crowd with Shenna and Kalish trailing after her. "They seem like a charming bunch," Shenna said, without really meaning it. "Oh, not at all. They're dreadful bores," Elira said as soon as they were out of earshot. "Come along now, there's plenty of others to yet greet." Shenna and Kalish followed Elira to and fro about the crowd, meeting more and more elegant and esteemed company. The same script played out each time. Introductions and curtsies were exchanged. Elira would comment upon the matter of jewelry and so broach the topic of Kalish and her work, and the ladies, made freshly jealous, would offer a non-committal assurance that they would send a servant to place an order. Then a hasty farewell, followed by a casual denigration as soon as the noise of the crowd concealed Elira's disparagement. "Do you even like any of these people?" Shenna asked. "Oh, come now, one doesn't invite a person to a soiree because one is fond of them," Elira said, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Now come along, we're almost done. We've one last fellow to meet." Elira led the way through the crowd toward a man in a well-tailored black tailcoat and pantaloons at the top of a small stair. His neat brown beard and mustache twitched subtly as he surveyed the crowd, and every now and then he would reach into his pocket and pull out a small handkerchief with which he dabbed sweat from his gleaming bald head. His eyes nearly popped out when he noticed Elira's approach, and he hastily stroked his beard into place before bowing deeply as Elira crested the small stair. "Blessings of the eventide be upon you, Lady Four Jewels," the man said, taking Elira's hand and placing a small kiss upon it. "And upon you as well," Elira said. "Shanat Kalish, may I introduce Master Rumsig Prideful Peacock, Director General of the Operatic Society of Accra." As soon as Shenna reached the top of the stairs, she dipped into a curtsy and began, "It is a blessing to stand—" "Oh, don't bother with any of that," Elira laughed. "Master Rumsig isn't nobility. Isn't that right?" "For the moment, that is true," said Master Rumsig, his mustache fluttering with what was probably frustration. "And who have I the pleasure of addressing this evening?" Shenna was about to hold out her hand for Master Rumsig to kiss when a sudden memory flashed through her head. A man in a fine feathered hat demanding that Shenna move aside for him to pass, and when she obeyed, muttering a not at all concealed imprecation against a hapless traveller like her. "Do you know, I do believe we've met before, Master Rumsig," Shenna said, pulling her hand quickly away. "Ah, have we indeed?" said Master Rumsig. "How wonderful." "Yes, it was just over a year ago in the old city," Shenna continued. "You called me a wretched country bumpkin and said I should be sent back to where I bloody came from." "Oh dear, that doesn't sound like me at all," said Master Rumsig with a nervous laugh. His eyes flickered about the hall, searching for any means by which to shift the topic of conversation away from himself. Finally, his gaze settled upon Kalish, making her way leisurely up the steps to join the company. "Ah, but who is this now? A foreign beauty from the mysterious lands of the south? I say it's always a pleasure to see such exotic creatures grace our humble theatre." As soon as the word exotic left his tongue, Kalish stopped in mid-step. Her face went as hard as stone. "I am not liking this one," she said sternly. "Take it away and bring me another." She turned her head away and strutted past Master Rumsig. "A proud beauty, that one," Master Rumsig said. "Foreign royalty, no doubt. I know the breed when I see it. But I'll tame her yet." "Tame her?" Shenna balked. "Just what do you mean by that?" "Yes, I could have sworn you were already married," Elira added. "Alas, my dear wife passed some months ago," Master Rumsig said, with a tone that bespoke an indifferent marriage. "She probably used that as an excuse to be rid of you," Shenna said. "Why, how dare you?" Master Rumsig huffed. "Why, I'll have you know, I sat beside her until the very end." "That's probably why she passed," Shenna said. "I held her in my arms," Master Rumsig continued, "and I laid a final kiss upon her brow as her life faded away." "So it was murder," Shenna said. Master Rumsig's impotent spluttering was drowned out by Elira's laughter. "Dear me, but that is terribly clever. Come along, Shenna. Let us be gone before he gets it in mind to do the same to us." They rejoined Kalish only just as a clear ringing of a bell announced the opening of the theatre hall. The trio at once made their way for one of the stairwells, making their way to the private box that Shenna had reserved for the evening. It was at the very top of the theatre, and faced just as much toward the audience as toward the stage, as though one had booked it not as much as to see this theatre as much as to be seen by the theatre. 4 richly upholstered chairs awaited them, though Teresine was still nowhere to be found by the time the lights dipped twice to signal the beginning of the show. Down below, Master Rumsig stepped onto the stage to a polite trickle of applause. "Good evening, kind friends," he began, "and welcome once again to the Grand Opera House. It gives me great pleasure to introduce this evening's performance of—" Shenna glanced at Kalish and found her friend's face still stone hard with disapproval. "He really was rude, wasn't he?" Shenna whispered to Kalish. I do not wish to discuss it, Kalish said firmly. Sorry, Shana backed off. I won't ask again. It is not your fault, Kalish added, more gently. Perhaps we shall discuss it later, when there is time. Master Rumsig's speech dragged on for at least 9 more minutes, meandering from one subject to another. He blathered on about the story of the opera, about the actors who were to portray it, about the music that was to accompany the performance, and any number of other loosely related subjects. Eventually, he brought his ramblings to an end of sorts and departed the stage to another polite flurry of applause. Then the lights went down, and the orchestra moved into the overture. The curtains parted to reveal a set made up to resemble an idyllic country village, populated by a company of peasants who sang about the hardy virtues of their bucolic rural life. The scene, of course, looked nothing at all like the real thing. The stone buildings painted onto the backdrop, with their glass windows and fine slate roofs, were far too grand for a poor hamlet like this. And the country lane stretching off into the distance was done up in cobblestones, a pointless extravagance that no village council would ever authorize. Even the chorus of dancing peasant girls were garbed in chiffon and taffeta. The least of them would have seemed like a queen compared to the richest woman in Riverwatch. The story, whenever the cast could be pulled away from their singing and dancing, was somehow both impossible to follow and painfully predictable. One of the peasant maidens had just reached marriageable age, despite her actress clearly being at least a decade older than the other girls, but never mind, and had caught the eye of a wandering prince who had once decided to make her his queen, without having actually spoken to her first, but details. This sparked conflict with another noble maiden who had been promised to the prince, and was determined to rid herself of this new romantic rival, with which end she made common cause with a villainous huntsman who lusted in turn after the peasant maiden. Eventually, the music swelled into a climax of sorts, and the curtains drew closed. The house lights came back up, and the audience filed out of the theater. Is that all? Shenna asked, only to find out that Elira had still not taken her seat. She got up and peeked out into the corridor beyond the box, and found Elira all but pinned against a wall by Terracine. Hushed words were passing back and forth between them, until Elira finally shrugged and began removing the glowing jewels. She passed them to Terracine, who festooned herself in the glittering baubles with ravenous haste, and whooshed off down the corridor without another word. I was tiring of the attention from the jewels anyhow, Elira said as she rejoined Shenna. Did you enjoy the first act? First, Shenna said. So there is more of it after all. I wasn't sure. Of course there's more, Elira laughed. It would be a pretty senseless thing to place to conclude the tale there, wouldn't it? The lovers haven't even had their big duet. Come now, there's still plenty of time in the intermission. Shall we wander down to the lobby and mingle for a spell? We may as well, Shenna shrugged, and followed Elira down the hallway. By the time they reached the lobby, Terracine had already gathered a crowd of ladies about her, and was basking in her borrowed finery and the attention it attracted. Elira at once made to join her kinsman, with Shenna reluctantly trailing after her. And suddenly, after an ear-splitting shriek shattered the dull hum of conversation. Apparently, every last one of the gemstones had chosen the exact same moment to drop out of alignment and clatter to the floor, leaving Terracine abruptly bare of baubles. The woman was now crawling upon the floor on hands and knees, desperately snatching up all the gems that she could reach, and occasionally heaving aside her masses of skirts to seek out any gems that might be hiding out of sight. Elira quickened her pace to a run to join Terracine in the scramble for the jewels, and from her vantage point at the top of the steps, Shenna saw at least one other woman subtly kick one of the gems beneath her own dress, and then shuffle away into the crowd to collect it in secrecy. Shenna took the opportunity to slip back to the box, where Kalish still sat, waiting for the show to resume. Say, I never thought to ask, Shenna said. Is it possible to take off these jewels and give them to someone else? Of course not, Kalish said. Perhaps they would be staying in alignment for 1 or 2 minutes, but without resetting the gems for the new person, they would just be falling off. Why are you asking this? No reason. Just curious, Shenna said as she slipped back into her seat. Eventually, the audience filed back into the theater and the show resumed. Elira did not take her seat until well into the performance. Teresine apparently was still out in the lobby searching for the one last missing jewel. Shenna was about to mention the woman she had seen making off with the final jewel when a small dark shape swooped down from above the stage toward the prince, who was in the middle of serenading his beloved. Moments later, the shape dashed off stage again with one of the feathers from the prince's hat clutched within its beak. Athanasius! Shenna watched in mounting horror as her feathered companion dive-bombed the prince again. Sometimes he would make off with another feather, other times the prince would bat him away, and all without missing so much as a note from the song. I am confused. Is this also the part of the performance? Kalish asked. I should say not, Elira said, casting a curious look in Shenna's direction. I need to step outside for a moment, Shenna said, already halfway to the door. She flew down the stairs to the first floor, and after a frantic search found a small doorway that led to the backstage area. She heaved the door aside and rushed into the dimly lit backstage, ignoring the stares of the bewildered actors and stagehands, or the hushed insistence of a nearby attendant that she was not allowed back here. Shenna at once noticed a ladder beside the stage entrance that led up to the rigging, and after quickly knotting up her skirts, scrambled up the rungs and onto a small walkway behind the curtains. Sure enough, there was Athanasius, perched on a railing, busily tucking another stolen feather into a knot of rope alongside several others. Once he was done, he hopped along the railing to take aim for his next assault. Ath! Shenna shouted a whisper, still anxious not to be heard over the singing below. Ath, come here! The bird looked up at Shenna and took a few short hops along the railing in her direction. Shenna began slowly walking in his direction and put out her hand. That's right, she said. Come with me. It's time to go. But instead of joining her, Athanasius looked back down at the stage and dove once again for the prince. Shenna watched the assault from her vantage point and winced as the prince loosed a slap to try and intercept his assailant. It was to no avail, of course. Ath easily evaded the flailing arm and snatched the second-to-last feather from the prince's cap. Shenna shook her head in frustration and rushed over to the knot where Athanasius had stashed his loot. She began delicately plucking the feathers out of the coiled rope. Once Ath was back under her control, she would pass them off to a stagehand with her apologies to the costume department. Of course, Ath returned before she was done, and at once rushed over to defend his stockpile with talon, wing, and beak. Ath, please, Shenna protested, raising a hand to defend herself from Ath's feathered fury, only to stumble backwards as she stepped on a stray length of rope. Only once Shenna had landed on the walkway did she notice that the knot had come unstuck during the scuffle. The rope was now rapidly unwinding as Ath scrambled to gather up the feathers before they dropped back down to the stage. And as for the stage itself, a different backdrop curtain was swiftly descending. The prince, who moments earlier had been singing in a deep forest, was now standing in a city market plaza that had not yet appeared in this performance. Shenna had no time to consider the embarrassment, for Athanasius was back on the railing, tucking the pilfered plumes into another knot further along the walkway. All right, Athanasius, you've had your fun, Shenna said, approaching the bird with a firm stride. But now you need to come with me. You're disrupting the show. But Ath was not to be dissuaded. He hopped in front of Shenna and spread out his wings as if to try and block her coming. And when Shenna reached out a hand to snatch him up, he leapt out of the way and caused Shenna's hand to stumble to undo another knot by accident. Yet one more backdrop plunged down, transforming the stage into the deck of a sailing ship. The prince was nowhere to be seen, for he had been standing behind the backdrop when it fell. He continued singing all the same. Finally, Shenna's fingers clasped shut around the mischievous mass of feathers and bone, and the chase came to an end. "I mean it, Ath," Shenna scolded as she tucked the rascal firmly beneath one arm. "I'm taking you back to my seat now, and I expect you to be on your best behavior from now on." "Madam," an attendant called from the other side of the walkway, "I must insist that you return to your seat this instant, or I shall have management eject you from the premises." Shenna was about to make a hasty apology when Athanasia suddenly broke free and made a dash for the rafters. Shenna grasped after him and immediately regretted her instinct, for she was now strung out beyond the edge of the railing, with only a single tenuous grip on the top of the backdrop curtain. Shenna fought to keep herself from looking down nearly as much as she fought to keep her balance. If her grip failed, she would plummet down onto the stage and be exposed before the entire audience, to say nothing of possibly breaking her neck in the fall. "I really am sorry," Shenna said, as the attendant approached and paused to consider the best way to pull her back onto the walkway. And then the backdrop began to rip. Shenna's balance deserted her in an instant, and she tumbled forward, through the gap she had already torn in the curtain, which only grew wider as her full weight was added to the force. She fell behind the backdrop curtain, clinging to the scrap of cloth in her hands to slow her descent, barely noticing the snapping sounds that told of the entire curtain coming loose above her. She landed in a crumpled heap, barely missing the singing prince, before the entire curtain flopped down atop her. She scrambled to collect herself beneath the fallen backdrop curtain, and she still smarted from the landing, but at least she had not broken any bones. She located the edge of the fallen curtain, and the dull light coming beneath its edge told that it was facing away from the audience. That was a relief. That would have to be enough to orient her as she slipped off stage. Shenna slowly got to her knees, and there was a loud thumping noise behind her, and the curtain suddenly pulled away. She felt the warm stage light upon her face, and blinked daze out of her eyes. She looked down to see the prince lying face down in the fallen backdrop. He had tried to step over her, and the fall had finally silenced his singing. And beyond him, the entire audience stared in utter silence. Even the orchestra had stopped playing. Shenna didn't know how long she simply stood there, staring into the audience, her mind gone blank from shock. She was completely exposed before the crowd, without even so much as a pair of false spectacles or a grease paint mustache to disguise her identity. Not that any of that would have concealed her jewelry, still gleaming brightly as if to outdo the stage lights. Finally, someone started clapping. Shenna cautiously turned her gaze to the far corner to see Kalish applauding her from the box. The light from her jewels clearly illuminated the grin spreading across her face. Elira stared at Kalish for a moment before timidly adding her own applause. Then someone on the other side of the theater joined in the applause, and then someone sitting in one of the front seats, followed by everyone sitting next to him. The noise swelled steadily like an approaching rainstorm until the entire theater was filled with rapturous applause, though judging by the looks on the faces of the theater-goers, none quite knew why. Shenna got to her feet and, playing along with the applause, gave a curtsy to the crowd before marching off stage with her head held high, as though all the chaos and madness had been her plan from the very start. And that's it.
That was very impressive. I like the use of humor throughout the.
Yeah, I did say this was a pastiche of the Marx Brothers.
I should have sent the book to the Marx Brothers.
How dare they blaspheme the sacred art, though?
I mean, Rumsig is basically a Siegfried Ruman, who was another common collaborator of the Marx Brothers. who usually played this character who is trying to get into high society and is the fawning. We'll do absolutely anything for money and power and prestige.
It's a pity the music got interrupted, though.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it was starting to get a little repetitive.
Who's the composer?
Oh, I don't know. Probably some famous dead guy that nobody's ever heard of.
Ahem.
Sounds about right.
I'm probably the only person who actually likes opera.
That is probably that's probably fairly accurate. Yeah, sorry. I'm not a big opera. I'm not a big opera fan.
Well, you're a Bulgarian, so we can't expect any better. So that's all right.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a vulgar chap. But what? Most of what I get into is stuff like really, really contemporary stuff. Like I think like Lord of the Rings is one of the earliest ones I've read. I've also read Les Mis. Well, first 75% of Les Mis, and then kind of quit because I was like, I can't take the constant tangents, Hugo.
There actually is contemporary opera, but it's kind of the music. But contemporary music is kind of weird. But it does exist. So,
Anyhow, any other thoughts?
No, seems pretty straightforward. I like it. There's no. I like the bit of Connie where Shenna comes out and it's like, hello, how's everybody doing? Kind of bit at the end. I thought that was hilarious.
Wow, what a terrific audience!
and Shenna's Shenna can be pretty sharp. I didn't realize she had it in her.
Oh, there will be more of that.
Like, I didn't realize she had that snark in her. Or shenark, I should probably call it.
Schnark.
Yeah.
Mark.
Well, there's gonna be more of that. Before long, she's slowly growing, getting more cynical.
Oh.
Yeah.
Your
There's a
wife probably lied.
particular moment there where she says, "Do you even like any of these people?"
And the lawyer's like, of course not. It's not has nothing to do with it.
I've mentioned before, but one of the main purposes of this chapter is a dressing down of all the rich people. So,
Yeah, of course, most rich people these days, probably a lot of them don't actually go to the opera anymore. I doubt that Trump or Elon does.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe Bezos. Maybe Bezos. Probably not, though.
I doubt. Jeff Bezos kind of gives me the vibe of he is just kind of like he's just kind of like the dude who likes a lot of contemporary stuff.
Yeah.
He clearly likes Lord of the Rings, but the problem is he's locked into a contract for 5 seasons with a pair of idiots.
The world is a vale of tears.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm still wondering when Shenna is going to tell anybody about Angara.
well,
Maybe she
Oh
never
yeah,
will.
she still hasn't told Kalish.
Or Elira.
Well, Elira's not, involved. She's one of the idle rich, so she doesn't really need to know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, she did give a bit of advice here or there, but she's not an actual employee of the company, I guess.
There's also a distinct possibility that if she tells anyone about Angara, that's going to turn off the money for Shenna. And that's very much a deal breaker.
Yeah, so does Angara have no competitors? Does it have a monopoly?
Well, not yet. Angara does not yet have a monopoly. The Magisterium still exists.
Oh, so it's basically either the Angara or the Magisterium for her.
And she's already been kicked out of the Magisterium, so
Yes.
that's not really an option, is it?
Yeah.
Anymore.
Ugh. I don't know. The only other alternative I can think of is to move to a different city. But these companies probably exist there too.
Now, which one?
Move to another city, but then the Angara probably has agents in all the other cities too by now.
Maybe.
Or maybe there aren't any other cities.
So
There's a few other cities, but none of them are nearly as significant as Accra.
Yeah. What's the political authority in charge? Is Accra totally independent?
It's the Magisterium. They're sort of the government by default, by agreement.
Oh, well, that's
But
convenient.
it's really mostly just that they have a monopoly on magic distribution, and because of that, they have a fund which gives them funds to sort of do a lot of public works programs. Like we've seen earlier, they hire a bunch of people from Mudtown to clear all the gunk out of the canals. They also run the patrol group, and they do the bank, which is another source of income for them.
So academia is kind of big.
Yeah,
kind of.
but on the other hand, they're very set in their ways. They're not really receptive to a lot of change.
Yeah, I
They're
wouldn't be
kind of
either.
strangled by the personalities of the people at the top. So
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I'd be the same way if I were them.
I would just impose very rigid standards on the film and television industry.
I would make public transit much more widespread.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I would do that too.
And not just buses. I mean trams and high-speed rail and stuff like that.
Trams would be nice.
I would totally be down for that, especially. It'd be difficult in places like Kansas, but it would definitely be really useful.
What, in Kansas? Kansas is flat. Trams could go anywhere.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's just like Kansas is basically nothing. Like since a lot of Kansas is teeny tiny towns that don't really have anything to offer, really.
Teeny tiny towns alliterates.
Yeah, it does. An unintentional bit of cleverness on my part.
Yes.
Well, that's why you have the large networks in the cities. They subsidize the smaller ones, which allows greater access.
Sounds good.
Anyways, any final thoughts before we move on?
No final thoughts. I like it. It's solid.
All right.
Solid stuff. I really like the I like the character work. I think that the comedy was very on point. I have no complaints about it.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Balerian, you said that you had something that you wanted to read as well, since it was like 2 short ones? Or what did you want to do?
Yeah, you can have a go first though, because I'm still eating.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
So at this point, the it's the preparation before the next battle is going on, where they've beaten off the first assault and now they're waiting on the next one. They've got reinforcements, but they're going to have to wait for the next bit. So this is kind of just picking up with Amora. So read through that. All right, chapter 32, the Beastling. Amora walked through the fortress, finally taking the time to enjoy the city. It was certainly a sight to behold, even with the broken areas. The architecture was beautiful, each piece a work of art. Various statues were scattered throughout the city. Sometimes they were carefully built into the buildings, giving them a greater sense of greater grandeur. Curious, she shifted into the umbriel and set herself on top of one of the buildings to get a bit better vantage. Once on top of the building, Amora crouched on the ball's feet, somehow able to maintain the position for as long as he needed. It was still marvelous to feel her body again, to be able to walk and fight, ride, and hold things. Tilting her head, she smiled as she began to notice a specific pattern that the city formed when you looked at it from above. It was shaped like the gears and the mechanism of a mill, but with more of a gap between them, as if to give the impression of blocky teeth. Cloak swirling around her body, she slipped into the umbriel, which allowed her to fly over the city, feeling the exhilaration of flight firsthand rather than through the mind of a bird. Finally, though, she reached her destination, the large courtyard in the rear of the fortress just below the central tower. Kurfir was waiting there along with Kamul. Well, I'm surprised to see you both here, Amora remarked. I would think that you would butt heads if you came too close. We have an understanding, Kurfir shrugged. Before Amora could ask more, Farah appeared out of shadow and walked beside Kamul, body language very familiar. I just got back from scouting the area, she remarked. There's another Delphar army coming our way. Well, we expected that. Kurfir sounded eager and resigned at the same time. Kamul let out a long sigh. How far away? They'll be here by daybreak tomorrow. Farah's voice held a touch of a grimace. Amora was getting better at telling which emotion was behind her fellow Azareth's masks. Maybe she was actually tapped into their emotions. They're going to strike when they know they have the advantage. How many? Kamul asked. Tens of thousands? Farah folded her arms. We can't hold out for more than a day or two. I saw several high lards, and Arbitraria was in the vanguard. Shadows, take that elf witch, Kurfir hissed. She's one of their most powerful warrior mages. They're committing this army into her hands. That means they're going to throw everything at us. Several druids were among them, though I saw no deep ones in their ranks. Farah continued, Boot resting her hand on her sword hilt. Either letting the Delphar take this one, or they're planning an assault from the sea. We're trapped again, but at least we have more troops. Kurfir put his chin in his hand. So, what do you think, Farah? We need Father, she said simply. We need to send someone to him so that he can bring the full might of Olympius down on the Delphar. I'll go. Amora raised her hand. That way I can send messages to you about how close we are. I don't know if we can spare any of us. The sense that I got from Kurfir was an odd one. The closest she could figure out was irritation mingled with resignation. But we can't send a rider. They'll get to my father too late. So, We're agreed. Kamul put his hand on Amor's shoulder. Go. Bring help back to us as quickly as you can. We need to make this the decisive battle of the campaign. If we break them here, that we might have time to recover our strength. Kurfir nodded. The Delphar might have had time to grow their numbers, but their birth rate is far lower than ours. If we can beat this army, then we'll have time to prepare for a campaign of eradication.
Oh no! Oh no!
All right then. Amora slipped into the Umbriel and flew away. That's the end of that chapter. Shall I keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I wasn't muted. Oh dear. Sorry.
you're fine. The oh dear was actually quite humorous. Farah watched as Amora flew away toward the east, wondering if they'd made the right choice. Eyes following his friend's departure, Kamul clasped his hands behind his back. So it falls to us to hold the line until reinforcements arrive, he said calmly, trying to break the seriousness of the moment. Farah smiled and put her arm around her brother and her lover's shoulders. Alrighty, boys. I think we should have a contest, she remarked. Just the three of us. Whoever kills the most Delphar has to buy drinks for the victors. We don't pay for drinks. Thanks. Kurfir shook his head, clearly slightly exasperated. Fine. Make a charitable donation of whatever spoils we win to the alehouse we celebrate in. Ferret tapped absently on Kurfir's shoulder. Come on, it'll make things more interesting. Add some flavor. Kamul glanced around Farah at Kurfir, then shrugged. I'll agree if you're willing. Rolling his eyes behind his eyeless mask, Kurfir sighed. Fine, I'll take the bet. Excellent. I look forward to outscoring the both of you. Farah bumped her hip against each of theirs before withdrawing her arms and walking toward the battlements. I'll go to the outer defenses and let them know how to pull back to more defensive areas. And I'll take care of the ones here. The Umbriel's power swirled around Kamul as he raised his voice to address the soldiers around him. Everyone, get ready for battle! The Delphar are coming! I'll also help gather the troops for the address. Kurfir extended his hand toward Kamul. Good luck, brother. Kamul clasped her brother's arm, and the two stood like that, eyes meeting as a pair of equals would. Fare well, brother. Braden Warlord put his hand on Kurfir's shoulder. Well, that's good, Farah thought with a smile. These two have a lot in common. I'm so glad they're friends. Within a few hours, the soldiers were gathered in the large open area in the fortress, both Brathens and Olintians standing together in rank upon rank of steel. Farah fully expected Kurfir to address the soldiers, but instead he nodded to Kamul, who stepped forward and drew on the Umbriel's power. So, you discussed to do this speech without me, Farah leaned over and whispered in her brother's ear. We discussed it while you were gathering soldiers from the outer walls, and I decided it would be better for him to talk to them, Kurfir admitted. He's done this sort of thing before, more times than you or I have. Besides, either of us were good at speeches. Much to father's chagrin, Farah chuckled. Kurfir laughed as well, then grew serious again. They look up to him. I don't know if it's because of his ring or who he is. I think it's a bit of the former, but more the latter. Farah let a smile cross her lips as Kamul summoned his mace and set the head on the ground. He's a leader, a commander. His men love him because he's fought among them and for them. And our troops see the same quality. He's like when he battled the Delphar at once. Kurfir tilted his head as if considering that. Unaware of the conversation going on behind him, Kamul rested his hands on the pommel of his mace and looked out over the assembled troops. Men of the East, and Olyntius. He didn't raise his voice, but it carried throughout the crowd. Today is the day where we prove our mettle. This is the great battle of our age, a turning point where we stand against the creatures of the deep and the woods. They seek to enslave or kill all of our race. So we must leave behind all old ideas of separate kingdoms. This day there is only humanity united before the immortal monsters that would sacrifice us like cattle. He still didn't raise his voice, but the soldiers began nodding. Today, the race of humanity stands against its enemies. Today we are united, and the reach of the Delphar will not cast its armies against us for 1,000 years. Come on! One of the Braden soldiers, she remembered his name was Eleran, raised a cheer. Come on! Come on! Come on! Hammer of Braid! Hammer of Braid! The Hammer of Braid! The other Braden soldiers started chanting, The Blade of Olyntius! The Olympians cheered. Eventually they began combining the cheers. The Hammer of Braid and the Sword of Olyntius! Farah smiling approval as Kamul raised his hand, the gem on his gauntlet glowing a dark orange. Will you fight beside us? Yes! Her seemed to emanate a sense of, well, respect. Truly, this man is a leader. Her brother shook his head. I can never inspire men like that. I've only ever commanded others. This is something different. A bit like father, Farah whispered. No, Majesty isn't quite the same. Kurfir rested his hands on his sword hilt. He's a captain, not a king. A great captain can inspire his men in ways that a king cannot, because he knows them, has suffered beside them, and isn't just an abstract concept. Interesting perspective. Farah put her hand on her brother's shoulder. You ready for the fight? The emotion coming from Kurfir immediately became eagerness. I always welcome the chance to kill my enemies. And that's going to be the end.
So this is the final battle then?
Final battle of this particular book, yes.
Yeah. Got a good little Aragorn at the Black Gates moment there.
Yeah. Yeah, the problem is this guy is not Aragorn.
Yeah.
Genocide Lotto is where it's at, man. Genocide Lotto is where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you expressing sympathy for the elf witch?
Oh no. On the contrary.
Good.
Yeah. If you're gonna massacre these people, you gotta may as well have fun with it, and hey, a little bit on the side and have some drinks afterwards. Yeah, man. If you
I'm confused.
I'm confused. I'm both confused and amused at the same time.
Go Kamul, he's really cool. That should be the chair.
I love you, Valerian. Never change.
Guy screaming.
Somehow I knew that would be the reaction to that one.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Pretty good plan, I think.
Well, not really plan, just
Our patter.
that was patter and pattern.
Indeed. Any comments, feedback?
What's Iliantris again?
Olyntius?
Olyntius, I mean. Beg your pardon.
Sorry, it's been a minute. So Olyntius is the island that got destroyed in the tidal wave. It's been a little bit since we've been there, so I understand you not remembering that.
Yeah, Olyntius. What else was I going to ask about? The Umbriel, some weird magic thing that they're traveling or something.
It's the shadow world that they draw their power from.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's run by not Mithrakard. That's it. It's powered by Mithrakard.
Kind of. It's more that it's a state of being that exists regardless of Mithrakal. She's actually not she's actually not from this planet. She's from a completely different world.
But she's giving these people some kind of power.
Yep. It's more like she has the ability to tap into stuff a little bit better than they are.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any other clarifying questions?
Not yet. I imagine we'll have more after the next one. And we'll see how the battle goes.
Yeah, we'll see who wins. See who wins the bat.
Yeah. So who do you think is? So do you think that these guys are? So from this, would you assume that these guys are the good guys, or do you think that there's some chicanery going on?
I think there's definitely something up. Yeah.
I mean, they could be, based on this, they could be good guys, or they could. Sometimes it's hard to tell in some of your stories if there is a good guy. To be honest, but I'm thinking that's probably intentional because there's a certain realpolitik about it.
Yeah. Specifically, Mithrakal is. We're gonna reveal exactly how evil she is eventually, but that's not going to be for a little bit quite yet.
Well, she's a credit card company, so of course she's evil.
Indeed. I was thinking a more, well, actually, never mind. I won't make that joke. I was going to make a taxation as theft joke, but that doesn't quite work.
No, not really. Not really. Unless you don't want to have roads or hospitals or
weather reports.
Research.
Yeah, weather reports. You know, those are basically done by the government and given away for free.
Which are?
Yeah, just the weather.
Oh, but they cause the weather too.
Well, if they are causing the weather, could they at least turn the heat down a little bit?
They did. It cooled down yesterday.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's still kind of hot today. Again, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was on Thursday. Wednesday, I think Wednesday.
If you think that the rich and the powerful control the weather, you'd think they'd make the planet a little nicer to live on because, like, they live on the planet too.
Nah. Yeah, they're gonna go to Mars.
Yeah. Well, I know Elon Musk definitely wants to go to Mars.
Well, hey.
Well, the good news is there's nothing on there, and he's gonna die pretty quickly if he does. So I, for one, say all power to him. By all
Yeah.
means, please.
Way to
Please.
go.
Sounds about right. Yeah, not the biggest fan of Mr. Z Kyle either. What?
I don't know if somehow that's funny.
Well, he deliberately made a Z Kyle sign.
Yeah, that was interesting to say the least.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know why you would do that. There's some very clear connotations with that that I don't really think that you're interested in having yourself associated with.
You would expect not.
But then he kind of does associate a little bit with neo-Nazis, so, or at the very least is giving a platform to neo-Nazis. So
Yeah, and like the whole like, oh yeah, there was some weird thing about the Jews. I can't remember what it was. Someone said something about the Jews. They were that the Jews were involved with the excessive immigration. I think it was that we have all these immigrants. It's
The great
Jews
replacement theory.
are involved that somehow, and he said yes or he agreed with that or something. But then I think he deleted his comment. So yes, he's quite a riot.
yeah, he's obviously kind of a weird guy just in general. He's had multiple like failed, at least like one or two failed marriages.
Oh, he actually bothered to marry someone, but marry one of them.
Oh, maybe he isn't married. Maybe he's just in a long-term girlfriend situation.
He's also got like a dozen baby mamas.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. His weird harem thing.
Weird. I like how you put weird harem.
Well, that kind of is.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's actually pretty accurate.
It's definitely weird.
Yeah, he's an odd man. It's clearly like there's some weird stuff from his childhood. I know he's talked about the fact that he was abused as a kid.
Yeah.
That he's fairly open about it.
Yeah. Maybe I should be more sympathetic to him then. On the other hand, no.
Yeah, there's kind of just he's just a weird guy. He has a ridiculous amount of money, which is like more money than he can ever really use.
Yeah, give me some of that money. I'll find a good use for it.
Yes. There are cool ways of being weird and there are uncool ways of being weird.
Yeah, and he's kind of gone into the uncool ways of being weird.
Yeah.
Though I do admittedly find the whole him and Trump's falling out situation to be
Vicariously enjoyable.
Oh yeah.
I just find that whole thing amusing where he's like saying, no, we're not doing that. No, Trump, don't do that. Trump's like, no, I'm going to do it.
And then he's like, oh, I have dirt on you. But then he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I take it back.
Yeah, the whole thing is freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, this has been our brief foray into American political figure diatribe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate everybody who's been here.
Oh, do you want me to read a little bit more or no?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
It's okay.
I kind of forgot. Sorry.
Yeah. It's no big deal. In fact, I can't read for long anyway because I'm still eating. But I can do a really quick little something. This is stuff that I wrote. There was a blank book that I got, like either for my birthday or for Christmas. with illustrations from Lord of the Rings. This is long before the films. So, A Hobbit's Journal being a blank book with some curious illustrations of friends and foes of the nine companions. Needless to say, it's all in the script, the font, And then a rune-like script it's got from the collection of Sangamgee. So I had this book, blank book, so I wrote all my fake Tolkien stuff in it. And of course, I wrote it all in this. Of course, I wrote all that stuff in the script too. So I wrote it all in this calligraphy that's meant to look like it's meant to look like it's meant to look fake medieval or something. So, the heroic age, dwarves, Myri. In Myri, this age is held to have begun when Brahmi died, whoever he was. During this age, the rings, it looks like, but I think it's actually kings, reconquered most of Myre. Zeppi the Dragon Slayer was the greatest hero of the age. His parents were the king and queen, I guess that says, of Rizamati, but they exposed him on a mountaintop. A, a shepherd named Linky adopted him. When he was 17, I guess that it's Roman numeral, 17 years old, he was betrothed to Basiri, a woodcutter's daughter. One day, she went to a cave to rest. It was a dragon's cave. Well, of course it was. While walking in the woods, he saw his love's shoes. I don't know why that's funny. He entered the cave and saw the fiery breath of a dragon, because of course he did. This dragon had stored some people in his cave to eat. Of course he had. Now, Zeppi was one of those people. But when the drake slept, Zeppi picked up a sword. Of course he did. Terdagali, Iron Death, which was wielded by Brahmi. He called the drake's name Agi. The dragon awoke and arose into the air. Zeppi stabbed him in the chest with his sword. Thus he rescued himself and his 6 companions. Balsi, Balsi, is that what the name is? Balsi, his beloved. Nasi, I think, or Nali? Nali. Terdanali, Ramigari, his wife Ranizi, and their daughter Zapizi. The 7 companions left the cave, each carrying a weapon. 100 hukus attacked the captive. Hukus are like these small, kind of like dwarf-like, hobbit-like things, except that they're fierce and they're evil. At least in this version of the story, they're evil. But they slew everyone, thus saving the central kingdom of Myri from disaster. They entered the capital in triumph. The king ennobled them, especially Zeppi, whom he appointed lord of the armies. Zeppi married Balsi and won many battles. But he lost the last when Myri was at war with Rizamati. When he learned that his parents were the rulers of Rizamati, he decided he could not fight against them. So he joined the armies of Rizamati against the king of Myre. He died in single combat with his faithful comrade Nali. Each slew the other. Okay. And that's enough of that. That's just the sort of thing I was doing at that age.
No worries.
I just picked that one at random too. That was just what there was. It's not as funny as Kara's, though.
Yeah, it's definitely better than anything I was writing at that age. So
Oh yeah. You should just seen the garbage I was putting out as a kid. And I'm glad nobody's ever going to, because it is long gone.
Bother.
Yeah.
No blackmail material. I mean, oh. Whoops. Sorry.
note to self: do not give access to Valerian. Do not give computer access to Valerian. Arian, he will search for blackmail material.
Oh. Yeah, that's the trouble. Well, I have plenty of blackmail material, but most of it's not on computer.
I'm interested to hear what your blackmail material is for me.
Basically everything where your voice is being recorded.
Yeah, sounds about accurate. All right, is that it?
I think that concludes things.
All right.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate you presenting and those few viewers who are able to watch. We appreciate your time and to help us out. I don't. If anybody who is watching isn't subscribed, we'd like to. We're trying to be We're going to try to be more regular, especially since I'm off work for the month. We'll have to figure stuff out there. Anyway, we'll let you all go. See you later. Bye.
Like and subscribe.
See ya.
Join the Patreon.
I do actually have one. I haven't gotten to use it though.
Well, early days yet.
Mm-hmm.